Hey there, lovely listeners. Amber here with a little note before we get into this week's episode of Bitch versus Bear. This week we had our good friend Becca Pinero back on the show from Black Sheep Coaching. She called in remotely, and in editing, we discovered that the audio is not as good as we thought it was. So I wanted to give you a heads up and a warning that the audio isn't as good as it usually is, especially with our new microphones. Woohoo! So please bear with us. We appreciate your patience and your continuing listenership and ask your indulgence with this episode. It's really great. We had a ton of fun talking to Becca about allyship and fitness, and we didn't want to cut it out of the rotation just because the audio wasn't as good as we had hoped. So hopefully you'll keep listening and let us know what you think of our chat with Becca. On to the show.
I don't want to be strong like men who look pretty. I want to be strong like bitch that fight bears in the forest.
Welcome to another episode of Bitch versus Bear with your host, Amber,
me,
and me, Sydney, and our guest,
Becca.
We're co-owners of Shield Maiden Trading Co., and this is the show where we bitch, laugh, and chat about all things fitness related to women in the LGBTQIA plus community.
Sure is.
Heck yeah.
Yay. I'll add that in later.
We have a guest this week. Yay! We're very excited. So some of you may remember Becca from earlier in our show. I think you were back on in like January. You were like our first guest and like one of our first things in January.
Yeah, I was living back in Oregon at the time too.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
a lot has changed.
So much has changed.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, the reason we have you on this month is because this episode and this month is all about the gays. And you are an ally of all of the gays, and you also own a fitness business. So you're the perfect person to have on the show for the importance of allyship and how to promote it within the fitness industry.
Woohoo. Which needs to be talked about. We all agree.
Yes. Yeah.
Needs to be talked about.
We had a whole meeting before the recording.
Yeah,
and we
the
agreed.
meeting before the meeting.
We did. Okay, so back in January, you were living in Oregon. Things have changed. Give us an update on what's going on in your life.
Yes. So I was living in Oregon. We're now in South Carolina. Noah, my partner, got out of the Coast Guard. So we moved here. He has family here. He got into an internship here, and we just kind of wanted to come back to the East Coast. Now that we're here, it feels like I'm in the South. I do not feel like I'm on the East Coast whatsoever.
Right?
It's very humid and very hot. But I'm enjoying it. We're out of the rain. You know, that was awful in Oregon. But yeah, the business is doing well. I've met a lot of new people since being here. And I started working as a paramedic again. So life's a little crazy. I don't have my garage gym, which is really sad. All of our stuff is in storage right now. We literally don't get all of our household stuff until like September. Yeah. So we're living in our 19-foot camper. And yeah, I have to drive 30 minutes to the gym, which is not fun. I was so spoiled with my garage gym. Like, I didn't have to wait for people to be done with equipment. You know what I mean? Like, I had everything I wanted. I could set up my camera wherever I wanted, and now I have to like think about other people again. So that's taking some. I know, right? I'm like, come on now. Yeah. So a lot has changed, but we just found out that an offer on a house got approved. So we're in the middle of buying a house. Yeah. It has a huge shop, so we're gonna really have like an upgraded garage gym.
That's awesome. Well, Congratulations on all the big things.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Also super excited because now you're within like kind of driving distance. I mean, it's gonna be like a long drive, but still better than Oregon.
Driving. Mm-hmm. Well, and we're on the same time zone too, you know, like
too.
That helps.
Did we ever figure out how long of a drive is it? I mean, it can't be.
I think it's like 6 hours to you?
Yeah, like that's not bad. I could leave in the morning.
That's not bad
and
at
be
all.
Yeah,
I could be there for like happy hour for like in the
Yeah.
morning, you know? Like easy
Exactly.
peasy. We need to
That's
have
a
like a
drive
boot
across New
camp or
England.
something. Yeah. We have like a
Yeah.
boot camp or something. A little collab. Oh my gosh.
That would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Right?
Be a lot of fun.
Next podcast topic.
Next podcast topic. I love it. Awesome. Okay. So I'm super excited. I think you both are excited, but also nervous because
Yes.
you are in the hot seat.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
As the biggest allies that I know.
Oh,
Okay.
that makes me feel really happy though. Like, yeah,
Until we
it's
s-
such a compliment.
That made me feel good too. And so until I started looking at your list of questions for us, it's like,
And then you're
I
like,
feel so
wait.
inadequate.
Yeah.
It was not an exercise to make you feel inadequate. It was an exercise to bring out like what the importance of allyship, and like it actually takes a lot of work. And so like allies who are, like it's a lot of work on your end, and like those of us in the community, we appreciate it.
You're high maintenance.
You are so high maintenance.
Out of the two of us, yes, I get that all the
Yeah.
time.
I'm not gonna lie, Amber, I thought you wrote these questions just with like how in depth they were. I'm like, Amber wrote these. And then I saw,
Oh, God, no.
the questions are for me and Amber. Sydney wrote them.
I would never write this many questions that I had to answer.
Oh gosh. Okay, we're done interrupting.
No, that's fine. It's fine. Because you all are going to be talking a lot. And so my first question for you all, and you can rock, paper, scissors on who has to go first.
Okay.
What motivated you to become an ally?
I can take the first question first if you want.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so I thought about this and it was a really interesting question. And I think for me, it was never like a conscious decision that I made to be an ally. Like I've always since high school, had friends who fell somewhere like in or on the queer spectrum. So it never occurred to me that there was a choice about being an ally. Like I didn't know I could opt out of that.
Okay,
It's
so
like being gay. It's not really a choice.
it's not a choice. So
Yeah.
continue.
So, like-
Are you done?
Yeah. So, like for me, it was always just like, these are the people that I care about, and it doesn't matter who they are or how they identify. So like, obviously I'm going to support them and
Mhm.
respect them like I would anyone else that I am friends with or care about. So yeah.
Okay, well, I want to go first next time because I promise I'm not copying her answer. I have mine written down and it's very
I do too.
similar. Okay. So literally mine is like, I thought about it. I'm like, I never like made this deliberate choice. Like it was never a, do I want to or do I not? Like it's just like at the core, I think of who I am. Like I want to support
Good answer.
anyone and everyone doing what makes them happy and to live their life true to who they are. It wasn't, again, it's not like I didn't think I could opt out of it, but I even never like thought of it either way. It's just always been something I wanted to do. But it's interesting, like you pointed out in high school, you said you had a lot of friends and whatnot that were on that spectrum. Growing up,
I mean, to be fair,
homeschooled-
they weren't all out in high school,
right.
but they were there.
They were there. Being homeschooled in a religious family, I had no exposure actually to anybody on that spectrum that I knew about at the time. It wasn't until I was an adult. But even then, I'm just grateful that, deep down, I was just like, yeah, like high five, live your life, be happy. And I want to support that 100%.
We need to do like a collab shirt that says high five, live your life, however you want to live it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
LGBTQ. Just like,
Seriously, like
it'd be awesome.
be a good human, be nice, and then that's it. Yeah, it's so simple.
It's so simple.
It's
Right?
like I just want to when I say that I just want to grab somebody and be like, it's so simple. Like I kind of feel frustrated as I say it.
Yeah.
I like that. And I like that neither of you were like, oh, I had a choice. Like,
I didn't have to live this life.
Yeah, hold on.
It is.
I could have opted out of the games.
No,
Honestly.
no. Too many people
feel
are
like-
out.
I feel like
It's true.
opting out would honestly be more work for us. You know what I'm saying? Because it's
Well,
just kind of
yeah.
who we are. You know,
Now
like
it would.
right?
Like
Like
so many.
She's like a Pokemon trainer.
Have them
right?
all.
Like, not supporting this community would just be harder than supporting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate that.
We got
Okay.
you. We got you.
So, how do you, and you both don't have to answer if somebody feels like they have a better answer for whatever question, like you can be like, I'll take this one. How do you educate yourself on LGBTQIA issues and experiences?
Do you have a stellar answer, Amber?
I don't know. We
I
should
feel
have
like-
Oh.
compared notes.
I we should have. I feel like I wish mine was better. I thought about this and I'm like, how do I educate myself? And my takeaway is that I could do better to educate myself. I'm going to start with that. But a big one right now is social media. I follow a lot of individuals who identify in that community, and they post a lot of things. And so I just try to listen. Like if they talk about things that they struggle with or that, issues they run into, then I just kind of try to take note and be like, okay, like how could I prevent that? How could I make that better for them? So just being open-minded and paying attention really is kind of what I've done up to this point.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's mostly the same thing too. Social media is like a great source of all kinds of things.
Right.
And I ask questions. Sid knows I ask questions. Either of my friends or of Google. If I'm like, that's an interesting thing. What is that about?
Yeah.
I want to comment on that because I think that's an underutilized tool because so many people in the community are like, we're resources for people and we like to be that, but it's hard when it's everyone, right? Like if everyone is uneducated about something and you're the only resource. So I love when people are like, you know what? I saw something, I heard something, and I took to Google. Like we have all of this information on the World Wide Web. Like I don't have to be your single, because like even my own experience is going to be different from somebody else's.
It's going to be your experience. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, especially like terminology and things, sometimes people say something and I'm like, I don't know what that means. I have to Google it. And I are one.
I are one. So that does, I was going to ask is like if somebody asks you a question, is it just would get tiring because you're always asking, or does the question sometimes like that they don't know, can that be offensive? Like how could you not know that, or do you not view it that way? And it's
I don't view it that way normally.
Okay.
Usually it's like it's never for me like, oh, how do you not know this? It's just usually it's a similar question and I just have to keep repeating.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Sometimes I find myself nervous to ask because I'm like, I feel like I should know. You know what I mean? Or I feel like that's offensive or something like that. So that is a good take on it. Okay. Thank you.
And I think we've had this conversation before, between us and with other friends. So like I do try to be aware of how many questions I ask my friends in the community.
I mean, it's like anything, right?
Yeah.
Like anything. You don't want to just over ask or overuse a resource,
Yeah, exactly.
And I've also plugged for Sid being right. I have started listening to Making Gay History podcast. It's awesome. It's very cool. Would highly recommend. I think I talk about it again later.
Will that be like added in the show notes, like the
Yeah, I can add that in the show notes. It's really cool. So it's this guy who's also in the community.
Eric
Marcus. And he, I don't know, like I don't remember the very first like intro, but like he's like a journalist or something and has interviewed all these amazing people who are in the community or allies, and like shares those interviews or clips of them and like gives some history and like talks about these people. And it's so cool. It's really interesting. A lot of fun.
Okay. Cool. No, that sounds awesome. I never thought to go to a podcast. Like, I don't know why. I just hadn't thought to like go to a podcast for education on that topic. There's a podcast for literally everything.
Right.
Everything. So that's
You're on one.
I know, but like the
Here we are.
history, you know what I'm saying? Like, I guess I just focus on like the issues at hand and where we're at now. I hadn't really thought about like going back.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's very
I'm
cool.
trying to redeem myself from that comment. Like, you know, you get what I mean?
Yeah. What I heard was, and hopefully we can extract this piece of audio, is like, I didn't know I could go to a podcast for educational information. And then we plug ours. Marketing.
Exactly.
It's true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. This might be a hard question in that having to recall one of these moments can be like, triggering. So a little trigger warning, I guess. How do you or have you handled situations where you've witnessed discrimination or prejudice against somebody in the community, the LGBTQIA?
Ooh, okay. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to?
You can go first this time.
I'm oddly excited about this question for some reason.
Oh, great.
So
you go first.
Okay, so I think it depends on the situation, right? Like if I'm having a conversation with someone I know, like friend, family, whatever, and they begin to discriminate the LGBTQ community, I tend to like turn it back on them. Like I want to know more. Like I'm genuinely curious, like why do you feel that way? Is it, are you uneducated? Is it just what you've been told your whole life by, your friends or family or whatever? Is it religion? Like I like to know why, because then I kind of feel like once I know is when I can maybe try to shed some new light on it or then educate them or whatever it may be. Because that's what I deal with a lot in my family bubble is just, I don't want to say it's uneducation. I think it's just we've always felt this way. You know what I mean? And so this is how everyone else thinks. So this is how we think. So just trying to educate them a little bit. Now, if it was in a situation where I was just a bystander and somebody was, picking on somebody else in that community, it's free game at that point. There's really no telling what I would do. I had like this whole situation in my head that I was mulling over last night. I'm like, okay, calm down. But yeah, I'm not saying I do anything illegal or anything like that, but it's free game.
Gotcha. That was a good answer.
That was a good answer. You want us to skip over you? Do you feel like you don't have a great answer for that?
No, I can be honest.
Okay.
Okay, so my answer to this was that I honestly feel like I haven't really witnessed a lot of discrimination or prejudice directly. And I think that's because I tend to seek out spaces that are more inclusive and more tolerant. I tend to surround myself with people that are either in the community or tolerant of the community. So I don't know. I would like to think that I would, speak up and call out that kind of behavior. If I did witness it. So I don't know. I'm going to turn the question back on you, Sid. Have I missed something in our outings and time that we've spent together out in the world? Like I know microaggressions are pretty prevalent, and I'm sure I've probably missed some of those that have happened.
I can't recall a time that was glaringly obvious where it was like, oh yeah, this is like that's a time where I needed somebody to step up. But again, I think because our history is like we are in environments where I usually like scout ahead in terms of like we're joining a new gym and like those kinds of things. So again, yeah, we're usually in pretty tolerant and accepting environments. And so the expectation in those environments is that we're not going to face many discriminations and microaggressions, right? So yeah, I don't think that there's been a time that we're like, oh yeah, I needed you to help me in that fight.
And Amber's just like staring off in the distance somewhere. So when you said, you guys kind of like seek the community and gyms and whatnot that is a part of that community, this is just showing how how little I have to think about it in my position. But when you join a new gym, is that something that you are like researching to see if it'll be a good fit for you in that community, or how do you go about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, when, like, for example, when we moved here to Richmond, one of the
Yeah.
things that I did was when looking at gyms, most people will select a gym for a couple of reasons. One, the proximity to their house, right? Like, traveling is kind of a bummer, and most people don't want to commute very far to their gym. Two, for the kind of programming that gym, like, we don't go to a Planet Fitness. We were going to more CrossFit style, and some people select because it yoga, whatever it might be.
Yep.
So those are the main ones. But like when I look at like a website, I look for indicators in terms of like the verbiage that they use. So like, a lot of people are like, community and those kinds of things, but what kind of community? Oftentimes, especially in like CrossFit, we see a lot of like military and things like that, but are they flying a pride flag? That's an immediate indicator of like, okay, this is cool. Another thing is just like the imagery. Like I'll stalk their social media of like, are there different body types and people who look like me who I can kind of point out. I sent a really funny picture to Amber earlier today from when we went to a pride parade. And one of the things that I noted in the picture, I was like, the inseam on our shorts is a direct indicator of our gayness. As the inseam got shorter, we got more heterosexual. So it's like, are the women wearing, are they a little bit more tomboyish in their style? Are there, is it okay to have your shirt off? Like, are they taking photos of people with shirts on and shirts off? Like, a lot of people showcase those body types that are ripped and things like that. But like, what if you don't have that kind of body? Are you being showcased still? And so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely something. And we've gone to gyms where I'm like, not the vibe. This is not the vibe. And like, you do a class and you never go back.
Yeah. Okay. That's good to know. So like a pride flag can really go a long way of just showing we got your back. We're on your side. Okay. That's good to know.
Pride flags are great. The pride stickers or the human rights campaign stickers, which is the blue sticker with the yellow equal sign. Those are good indicators without having to be like, we are pride accepting. It's just like, oh, we have this on our door.
Yeah.
Because like I also understand that like these are businesses and they can't just cater to necessarily one subgroup, right? Like they're trying to attract a multitude of people, but I want to make sure that I'm included in that group that they're trying to attract.
In that group, yeah. Is it more so like who they're including or who they're excluding? Like, or is it not that black and white, right?
I don't think it's that black and white, or at least I haven't come across it. Like I haven't walked into many businesses in the fitness industry that are like, we are going to exclude X, Y, and Z.
Right.
They make certain policies that you're like, that policy is a little, that definitely undercuts some people.
Yeah. Okay. Good info.
All right. I love that you turned that back.
That was just really good. And like, that was really good to know. Cause like you said, when I pick a gym, I think of distance, programming. Do I think the coach is a dick? Things like that. Like, that's really all. Do they have the equipment I want? The certain setup I want? Like, it's all about me and what I want. You know what I mean? But it's not like, will they accept me? Like, that doesn't cross my mind. So it's good to get some insight on that from you.
Yeah. All right. Yes. Let's see. I'm kind of jumping around because I'm like, we kind of talked about the like, in what ways do we create like safe and inclusive environments? Like, I think that we kind of touched on that. Like, okay, how do you all create safe and inclusive environments like in your personal life? Like, how do you let other like people in the community know that you're like a cool person that is safe to be around?
I don't know.
Okay,
I mean, honest.
I try to use inclusive language, respecting pronouns and names, and I don't know. Being nice to people. Well, no, that's not true.
An indicator, like, and people overlook this, like, the way that you dress. It's like when you think about like your interior of a gym and like how you portray things, or even in your house, like clothing and like that kind of stuff is the way you do that and like market yourself in the world. So like having a more like casual and like wearing things that have like rainbows on them and like showcasing that, I would say is another way.
Uh,
Okay,
Your
yeah, because
flannel.
kind
My
of like what
flannel.
Amber said, it just seems like your flannel. Flannel.
Okay, so here we go, amplifying gay voices. I follow Two Dykes with a Mic on Instagram,
They're wonderful. I don't know.
and
Do you follow them?
they're so funny.
I'm going.
They're great.
to,
Go look them
though.
up. And they told me on the Instagram that me wearing my flannel in weather that is above 45 degrees was a hate crime, and I'm really upset about it.
Wait, did they say it like as a joke or like?
I'm sure it was a
serious?
joke. Yes,
We're gonna take it as a joke. Yeah, we'll take it. As
I'm
a
sure
joke.
it was a joke. But I felt very targeted because I do
Yeah,
like
you know-
my lightweight flannels as a layer in the spring and summer and fall.
You get a pass because you're from Vermont.
Yeah,
But, like Carhartts and flannels are okay.
I was gonna say like even Maine. You know what I mean? That's just such a Maine thing to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so flannels, okay.
You
They're
get a free
welcoming.
pass. You're fine.
Yeah. You get a pass. Pass them wearing your flannels. Welcoming. You might get mistaken for a lesbian, but like
I do that anyways. It doesn't matter what I wear.
Has that happened to you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in new spaces, especially at the gym. I am frequently mistaken for Sydney's wife.
Sure.
My entire volleyball team thought I was gay until I came out to them as straight.
I love that you just come out to people as straight.
Right? Yeah. It's like
You're
that's
hanging out in
what
the right now where you're like, guys, I hope you'll still love me.
Please still let me play with your team.
even though I'm straight. So, do you find it like this might just be me? I don't know. And if you need to cut this part out, you can. But do you find it as such a compliment if like another female comes and tries to like hit on you or flirt with you or whatnot? Do you think that's like a compliment of when a guy does it?
I mean, I would be incredibly flattered if a lesbian were to flirt with me. I would be honored.
Right? Like I was out on a girls' night once and I had this beautiful girl come up and very like asked me for my number and like it was very obvious, you know. And I mean, I talked about it for days. I was like, Noah, you better be worried. Like I feel so complimented right now. I feel different than when men ask me out. Okay. Like I was like,
It's different. It's so validating.
Right? I'm like,
women are more discerning.
Like she was smooth. Yeah, I'm just like, I don't know.
What can I say? Okay, so I'm so curious as to you, Amber. You mentioned like the comment of like a guy, you're ignoring them, and they're like call you a lesbian, like the derogatoriness of that. Like, how do you respond to like that kind of criticism from people about your allyship? Because I'm sure at some point we like walked by together, like like anytime people see you with a gay friend.
I mean, well, in that specific situation, I think I said thank you.
That's the best.
I mean, honestly, thanks. Yeah.
Thanks. Hi.
You must have turned a lot of people gay.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't feel like I get a lot of criticism or like pushback or feedback on my allyship. And I think that goes back to, just seeking out and just naturally tending to be in spaces that are welcoming and inclusive. But after reading all these questions that Sid had for us, I feel like I've gotten some feedback, which I can take. Take feedback. So I'm going to keep learning and find ways to support the community.
Yeah, that is a tough question. I think unfortunately, I have a lot of negative feedback about my allyship, and that's just I don't want I don't want to call out people or anything like that, but there are just people in my life that aren't going anywhere. And anytime the topic is brought up, there is lashback and there is conflict. And again, like I mentioned earlier, it's just trying to figure out I was at Target with somebody and I was in the dog section looking for toys, and right next to the dog section was a little like pride area. And I mean little, like we're talking like not even a full aisle, right? The tiniest little section for pride. And they had these little pride doggy backpacks. They had these pride I mean, I was that basic bitch who went right for it. You know what I mean?
I mean, I get
I'm
that.
like, "Oh my gosh," I thought it was
Tracy
so
has several
cute.
pride bandanas.
Yes, right? And I wanted all of them. And the person I was with was so irritated and just like, upset by it. And I'm just like, why? What is the problem? And just trying to stay calm and like like let's use words. Like you just threw that out there. We can't just pretend it didn't happen because I'm clearly excited about this. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
not letting them just kind of get away with the comments, I think is a big one, but call them out because a lot of times they kind of get uncomfortable and they don't want to talk about it anymore. And I think that comes from not really knowing why they're bothered by it, right? Like, why does this bother you? And it's like, well, I feel like it's shoved in my face. What? Flags? Rainbows? Like, what is shoved in your face? And just trying to make it simpler. And again, it's like, are you just reacting this way because that's how everybody in your life has? And that's just what you think you need to do. Um, I think that is how I've handled like the most recent ones is just talking about it and then also kind of taking a stand. Like I was excited about this. That's where I'm at. You know what I mean? So maybe next time just go to a different aisle. Like
Don't
I don't
follow me to
know.
the rainbows.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. Like yeah. So it's tough, it's complex. I think every situation is going to be different and I think too, it kind of depends on just how much energy you want to expend on that person, right? Like, do you want to just be like, not even worth it, or do you want to try to change the way they see things?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like that. Okay. So, how are you going to continue to learn and grow as an ally to better support the LGBTQIA plus community? And also think about this in the context of like, we own businesses that
Yeah.
are interacting with people and like, we want people to be healthier. And that means all people, right? Like, we want better outcomes for all people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good luck with this question.
Handy dandy social media. I'm gonna message Sydney all my questions. I'm gonna listen to this super cool podcast. um, yeah, being open-minded and within the fitness industry specifically, one thing I've started doing and I want to do more of is not refer to things as men or women's, like the men's barbell, the women's barbell. It's just a 35 and a 45-pound bar. Like that is all
Yes.
it is. I was at the gym the other day and they only have one 35-pound bar out of like the 40 barbells there. Don't even get me started. But I was looking
Leave.
for it.
You need to leave that.
I know. I was looking for it. I couldn't find it. And I looked over and a gentleman that would be like in the short stature, he was using it because it probably just fit better. And so like it's not like he's using the women's bar, he's using the 35-pound bar. So even like outside of this community, it could still, I don't know, be offensive, but like it's just not necessary to title it that way.
Mhm.
It's not that black and white.
It's restrictive and not
Yep.
inclusive.
Yep, exactly. And so it goes that way with a lot of things in the fitness community. We have certain weights of things that we just have always called men or women's. So getting rid of that and just calling them what they are.
Yeah, I don't understand. I never understood that. I'm like, well, this is the men's weight. I'm like, yeah, but I can swing that poundage with kettlebell. Why is that the men's weight? Like,
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Or somebody who's shorter might want to use a lighter med ball for wall balls than somebody who's really tall. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Oh, the wall ball heights. That's the other thing that ticked me
Yeah.
off. Like,
Right?
oh, like why does women's and men's matter? Like it should go by height.
it
If
should go
you're
by
under 5'5", you use this one. If you're over 5'5", you use that
Right?
one.
Like it doesn't make sense.
Exactly. Yeah, my last competition in Myrtle Beach, there was this girl there, and she was like 5'11", maybe 6 foot, and I'm like, well, this ain't fair, you know? Like,
Well, that's just it.
damn.
Like
Yeah.
it isn't fair. Like
Yeah, I agree. As somebody who has
Like-
to use a 14-pound wall ball and go 9 feet at 5'3",
Yeah.
I'm like, how about I use a 12-pound wall ball and I go 8 feet? Like,
right?
Yeah.
Or like, a man who's 5'5" has to go up to whatever the men's height is, but a woman
Mhm.
who's 6'6" or 6'4" is still going to the lower whip. Like, doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
And I think just realizing that, like, we might not change divisions within a sport, but just knowing that we don't need to abide by them in our everyday training or gym session, right? If you're not trying to make a certain division that the standards we can't change, then there's no need to be stuck in them.
for
Yeah.
sure. But you.
Oh, samesies.
Yeah, I like that. No, that's
What she
good.
said.
What she said. Yeah, just continuing to seek out new information and resources for new information. Continuing to try and create a welcoming and inclusive space in our fitness area. All the things,
Thanks.
the things that we talk about every week.
Okay. We don't talk a lot about this, but we
boy.
should.
Oh no.
Okay.
So there's the broad spectrum. There's the LGBTQIA plus community.
Mhm.
So what actions have you or do you want to take to support transgender and non-binary individuals specifically? Because they're kind of like at the end of that thing, and I wouldn't say they're new, but like
I was going to say yeah.
there's a lot of focus on them right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so
I mean, I do think it is uncharted waters a little bit, right? Like it is newer. People are trying to, I mean, I hope people are trying to figure out and understand what they need. One, again, I don't think it's that complicated. I recently had a friend and they became non-binary, and there was no big announcement or anything on social media. It's just a friend that I knew really well. We moved apart, so just kind of kept in touch over social media. And there was just things that this person was posting that I could just kind of tell, like that they were, more identifying like just with they them pronouns. So I mentioned this person and I was like, hey, I was like, I realized I almost said like, hey, and like kind of titled you as, something that you might not identify with, right? And so I was like, so I just want to make sure, like, is that so what you go by or what do you prefer? And I was nervous to ask, but I knew this person pretty well, but I was still like, is it okay to ask? Like, I don't know. And they were super great. They were like, yeah, thank you for asking. I go by they, them now. And honestly, that conversation was forever ago. And it's not been like every time I message them, I'm like, okay, remember, like it's not that hard. It's just, okay, noted. And then life goes on. I have yet to know anybody or work with anybody who's a transgender. So I would hope that I just would come off as open and somebody that they felt like they could correct and talk to and let them know what they need from me. Like that's the biggest thing. If I do something wrong, just I want to be the kind of person they can tell, like, hey, I'd prefer if you do this instead. And kind of go from there.
I think most people that I've interacted with, it is along those same lines of like, if you feel comfortable, getting corrected, they also feel comfortable with you asking. And like so many people see that as the barrier. Like, oh, I don't want to offend them by asking. No, like it's totally cool to ask. Like, and most of the time they will 100% tell you, and they will absolutely tell you what they want to be called in terms of their name, which is like the basic, like that's how we see ourselves in the world. It's like this name that we've been embodied. And so like when people are like, oh, I'm just going to use their other name. It's like, no, just that's what they want to be called. And most people are so grateful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I not being transgender myself, but I know the people that I've interacted with have always been really appreciative when people take it and be like, hey, what would you prefer to be called? How should I refer to you? And they're like, oh, awesome. Thanks for it takes the burden off of them. Too.
Yeah.
I also think for some reason people like to paint them in a bad light. Like if you mess up or get it wrong, they're gonna be so angry. And they're like, granted, if somebody gets angry or overreacts, like, okay, everybody does that. People are allowed to get angry, overreact. Doesn't mean they're in the right, But I do think there is this negative light of like, we have to work so hard and toe around them. Like that's what I hear a lot from people, right? And it's like, I don't see it, I don't. And
No.
I mean, if that's the case, maybe that person's just got some stuff they got to work through, if they're really getting so upset. Because again, we can all have bad days. We can all be in bad moods and whatnot. I don't think we have to blame how they identify is the cause of their bad day or rudeness,
And I'd be willing to bet that those people that are getting upset that that these people who are saying this are interacting with, I'd be willing to bet that they have been misgendering and misnaming that person
intentionally
for quite some time before they got upset.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then at that point, it's just disrespect at that point, like you just clearly don't respect me enough. And yeah, I'd get mad too. But yeah, most of the time in my experience, it's not that hard. It's really not. Like if somebody forgets something, you go, they forgot their jacket because you might not know if it was a he or a she, right? Like we already do that.
Yeah, exactly. And like my default is always just call a person by their name.
Honestly.
It makes it so easy.
I do struggle with that because I'm terrible at remembering names. So that is my biggest struggle. I'm like, I know you.
Hey, you.
you
over there. Yeah, I feel that.
I have one more question.
Oh.
And that question is, how have you in the past, or how are you going to, moving forward, use your privilege to amplify the voices and experiences of people in the community?
No, I had a nice long answer for the last question.
Okay, well,
no, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. You said you had one more question, and it's the one I don't really have an answer to.
I know.
Oh, this one is the one you don't have an answer to?
I mean, I kind of have one.
Mine came to me right before we started because I didn't last night. And I think it was because I was misunderstanding the word privilege, right? I was kind of like confused by that. I'm like, what does that mean? I knew what the word privilege means, obviously, but in this context, I'm like, I don't get it. So I did some research on the Google, and it was actually like this question. It said a lot of people misunderstand this because they think privilege means they've never had hardships or anything like that. And it's just everybody has their own privilege, whether it's education, job status, color, like just their, like you probably have certain privileges I don't, I have some that you don't, like everybody has their own, right? So when I thought about it that way, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Because winning the Ally Award.
There will be awards at the end of the year.
Okay,
just
awesome.
So you know.
So I'm gonna steal this from somebody else. Somebody else said it, and it just was really good. But they said, thinking of an ally as an action rather than a label.
Love that.
know, right? I was like, oh, that's really good. Yeah, it is. Like, you can't just be like, I'm an ally, and then, kind of go on your merry way. Like, it truly is to be a good one. I think it's an action, and that action's going to vary depending on situations and stuff. But
I like that.
I love that.
Okay, second shirt design.
I know, right? Being an ally is an action. That T-shirt would be so cool.
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
What is it? It would be an action, not a noun.
Yeah.
Or is a.
Yeah.
Don't ask me. I don't know.
Anyways.
Yeah. We'll come up with the design.
We'll Google.
Yeah. Google. But yeah, I was very proud of that question. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oh wait, I got it.
Yeah, I like that. That's awesome. All right. The actual last question for Amber is, and also Becca, how do you advocate for inclusive policies and practices in your workplace, school, or community?
Okay, so this one I actually had like tangible things that I could talk about.
It's your podcast. Do it.
It's your month. I don't know. Okay, so this has been like, I liked this question because it's been a huge topic of conversation in my primary job lately. So my primary job, I work in admissions for an outward bound school. And we've been doing a lot of work as an admissions team to make sure that the language we're using in our materials and like what we're putting out to students and families is very inclusive and welcoming and respectful. So one of the biggest things that we've done recently is develop this new like self-care sheet.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You got our attention.
Right, it's so good.
Tell us more.
So like, it's how to take care of yourself on course, right? When you're out in the backcountry and in the wilderness. And so for a long time, it was just like, you don't get to shower. Here's what to do when you're on your period. And like, that was kind of it, which is not useful for a lot of people. So we revamped it, and it now includes specific information and a heading, like we're not trying to hide it, about or for transgender, gender nonconforming, and non-binary students, that talks about and has tips and tricks for binding, tucking, and how to manage hormone medications on course.
Wow.
It's awesome. It's so cool. So we did this purposely, like we put it on this sheet, we give it to everybody, and we wanted to make it very obvious and very clear that we are including and respectful and supporting these students on our courses.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, and then, we also changed the way we talk about menstruation, like talking about it as just like, if you are somebody who menstruates instead of women who menstruate.
Yeah.
Because, everybody gets their period, or all kinds of people get their period.
It would be better if everybody got one.
Right.
I think there would be a lot
Even the
more
playing
compassion in
field.
the world.
You know what I mean? Even the playing field.
Yeah. And like, and then little things like, looking at the language we use. We started out being like, what is your preferred name and pronouns? And then we took the preferred out. We just say, okay, what are your pronouns? What is your name? What name do you want us to use on course? What pronouns do you want us to use for you on course? So just trying to make it very clear, very obvious, like, we don't care who you are. Just come and be outdoorsy and dirty hippie with us.
That is very cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah. And it's not in like a little like down at the bottom of the page, like kind of a thing. Like you said, you made it very obvious. Like it's there. We're not hiding this information.
Yep. It's on the sheet that goes out to every student that enrolls with us, which is very cool.
That is very, I like that.
That is cool.
I do too.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the big.
I don't have an answer that competes with that. Sid, can you repeat the question one more time for me?
Yeah. So how do you advocate or plan to advocate for inclusive policies and practices, either in your workplace, school, community, your own business? Like if you have plans to put out any kind of like information or policies about who, obviously like nutrition, I feel like is good for everybody. So yeah, anything that you're planning on doing, even in terms of like policies and practices.
Okay, so no, that's a good question. And something that just came to mind, I didn't even realize, but one of the apps, Precision Nutrition, you got your I believe your certification through there, right, Sid? So I got mine too, and I use their calculator a lot for getting macros and all that. And one thing that's on there is you just select man or female. And it has crossed my mind. I'm like, I wonder how big of a deal selecting that is for the calculator, right? So something like, reaching out to Precision Nutrition and asking, like that could be something to do ahead of time. Like, is this necessary? Is there another option? Does it even matter? So something like that within just my own business, getting a pride flag is the next thing. And then in my workplace, EMS is known to have dark sense of humor and to give people a hard time. And that's something that I've seen a lot of, and it's an excuse to be a bully. It really is. Unfortunately, I don't feel like people feel comfortable in EMS to come out. I really don't. But if we have a patient who is transitioning, for some reason, the providers on the truck, just ones I know, like are baffled by like, are you going man to woman, woman to man, like all these things that they feel like they need to know. And at the end of the day, we really don't need to know. Like, granted, yes, maybe your provider at the hospital would need to know for your treatment, like 100%. But I mean, it's just, I don't feel like there's a lot of respect there. So a lot of times, again, I'm just like, why do you care so much? Like, why does it bother you? Again, are you uncomfortable? So just calling it out. And if someone makes a homophobic joke, which they do, just telling them like, that's really outdated. Like I'll kind of be the counter bully and try to make them feel kind of bad about saying it, like that's really dumb to say. Nobody says that now,
Yeah. I like that tactic. I would 100% steal that of like, that's so outdated. Like, keep it up with the times. Like, come on.
Yeah, nobody says that anymore. The other day I was at work and sometimes I forget that like I am in the South. Like, the South Carolina feels like the South. Everyone here asks what church I go to. Like, that's a thing. Okay. I was never had that happen. And Noah's like, oh yeah, everyone's going to ask what church you go to, cause he's from here. But I was at work the other day and with it, Pride Month, I was like, Columbia's a big city, lots of colleges. I'm like, is there going to be a Pride parade here? And the looks I got from people, I felt like they were all thinking, aren't you straight? Like, why are you asking? Kind of a thing, right? Like, I'm like, because I'd still want to go and, like.
They're fun. The parades are fun.
Honestly, right? Like, I'm like, I finally live somewhere where there's going to be one. So none of them could, they're like, I don't know. But they were so confused. I could just see it on their face. And later that day, I actually saw somebody wearing a watch and their wristband was like pride colors. And I was like, oh, hey, I see your wristband. I was like, do you know if they're doing a parade here? And she's like, oh yeah, they do it in October. I was like, oh, okay. So there is gonna be one. But yeah, like nobody at work knew about it, they didn't want to talk about it. Like it just kind of like shut down the conversation. Very bizarre. So yeah, just continuing making people feel uncomfortable and dumb when they make transphobic jokes.
I love it. Yes.
I'm here for that.
Right?
Yeah, I like that revenge.
Mm-hmm.
Here for it.
Like you decided to be the bully first, so it's okay if I'm the counter bully.
The counterculture. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that.
Well, this has been super fun.
It has been.
You all have enjoyed, but I didn't intend it for to be an interrogation.
Are you sure? Because that's the way you wrote it out.
I think I'm glad Amber was nervous too. Because I'm like, oh my gosh. I did message you last night. I'm like, Sid, will there be time to go over questions before?
Yeah, I think when I first read the outline, I sent her a message and was like, well, I feel like a bad ally.
I wish we should have messaged Amber because I was like last night in bed, I was asking Noah questions. I'm like, hey, how does this sound? Stuff like that. What do you think of this? Oh, man.
Oh, yeah, you should have messaged. Yeah, Amber was like, oh, I've been a bad ally. Just get it added to the to-do list.
Be a better ally.
Can I quit?
No.
I'm just now learning that's an option.
How do I unsubscribe?
There's no unsubscribe button for this.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for taking your time to be on with us, Becca. And we'll collab on really cool shirt design. And
seriously.
Oh
my God, I'm so excited.
Awesome.
I am too.
Yeah. And anything else, Rebecca?
No.
Do you have anything else to say?
I don't think so. We covered so much. It was a lot of fun. I had some good laughs. No, this was just really fun to talk about. Like I said in the beginning, I don't think I've ever just like had a conversation where somebody asked what I thought about these things. So like taking the time to think about them and discover what do I think about these topics has been really cool. And really neat just for my own self-discovery on things and taking other people's opinions out of it, and whatnot. And just coming back to what I think has been really cool. And it shows me areas I need to work on as well.
What a great wrap up. That was a perfect answer, Becca. You're going to be on the show more. You did this so well.
Amber, you and I can talk about how we can be better. We'll be like, all right.
Like, okay, what resources did you find today?
Exactly. You ask Sid, I'll ask Sid the next question. That way she's going to annoy one of us.
I feel it. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. Next month, for those of you listening, we're diving into a really cool topic, fitness through pregnancy and motherhood. So keep listening every week. Clearly, Becca's interested.
Not for any particular reason. I'm just intrigued.
As a fitness professional.
It just needs to be talked about more. Yeah. Because like, as a female in the fitness industry, I'm like terrified for if I do decide to have kids, like, what is that going to look like? So having more information out there, I think it'd be great.
Yeah, tune in all of July, Becca. That's our topic. It's going to be great. Send us comments.
I'm here for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And that's a wrap.
All right.
The wrap on the gaze.
Wrap on the gaze.